So the astrology of this upcoming week, 26 October 2020 to 1 November 2020, is interesting. It's actually all about relationships because Venus and Mercury are both entering Libra on Wednesday at the same time. Just a note to start the week, we still begin, and this is at 0000 right on Monday, 26 October here in Central Europe. Mercury and the Sun are still very, very close. Mercury is still in this condition we call the heart of the Sun. So I think this gives an opportunity, as we set the tone for the week, to really reconsider the planning for the week ahead. Because Mercury in the ancient text signifies military planning, strategy. So that planning side to Mercury is something I think we can bring in early in this week to try to lay out maybe how the week is going to unfold. It's also Scorpio, and so Scorpio is the depths, the well of emotion, that deep-seated unconscious energy. When we're triggered, when the emotions come up, the pause can be very, very useful, just to take a second to feel, to pause before the reaction happens. That's kind of that strategic planning energy that I think Mercury can be about. Trigger is kind of a buzzword. It's a word that maybe isn't the best word, but when things come up, you might say, when the emotions appear, when they arrive, those emotions swell is maybe a better verb. And sometimes this can even be a delayed thing. It's like the interaction happens and then it's 4 or 5 hours later and it's that repetition in the mind. That emotion has swelled and it's replaying those tapes in the mind. The Mercury in the heart of the Sun retrograding, it can offer an opportunity to, instead of replaying the tapes in a way that's just feeling bad and draining, there is a mercurial analysis that can be quite useful to understand why, understand myself in a similar dynamic, because life is so often patterns. It's just these repeating patterns. I find the patterns change when I change. And that Mercury Sun together can be very much about analyzing the self. So use that at the beginning of the week. That's Monday, right as the week starts. And so let's move here. On Wednesday morning, and this is the big story this week, Venus and Mercury within 7 minutes of each other enter Libra. And they both have dignity in Libra. Mercury is the night triplicity ruler, Venus is the domicile ruler. And so there's a sense that they're both kind of coming home to turf they're very comfortable in. And Mercury will eventually station direct here next week, not this week, but Mercury slows this week and gains power as it slows in the sky and gets ready to move forward. And Venus is having a grand old time, during this whole jaunt through Libra. I think about signs like that. It's like the color of the glasses. You put on some glasses and you see things in a way. It really changes how we perceive or how we filter reality. And so when Mercury's in this Venusian Libran filter, so is Venus. They're sharing that same set of glasses. So they can relate to each other, they can communicate with each other, they can message each other, even though they're so far away by degree. And of course, if they were to meet, and they'll meet later, not in Libra. Yeah, so their eventual conjunction does not happen in Libra. But they're going to spend a lot of time there together, and they'll be able to communicate and talk and share. It's kind of a cool thing because Mercury and Venus together actually do work and can support each other in the tasks that Libra requires. Libra is a day sect sign, so it's a sign that we call it diurnal. During the daytime, most people are out in the world doing business, maneuvering, going to their jobs, and then at night people come home. So Venus and Mercury can really work together in Libra, and it's more focused on these outward active relationships. There's parts of intimate relationship that there's a phase that's more daytime oriented. So you might ask that person for coffee, you might DM that person, shoot your shot, as they say. I think this Venus, Mercury, and Libra, there's a great power now with how we actively engage others, and there's an opportunity to assert and maybe say, hey, I'd like to meet you, or I'd like to talk to you, or hey, can I see you? I want you. That's that Bob Dylan song, I want you. And expressing that's an active step. And someone has to initiate, the dance of relationship. There's always an initiator, and then there's a response. It's a call and response. The air active Libra is a real invitation and opportunity to do that. And air signs are all about communication. And I think DMs or emails or even words, writing that love letter, if you're going to go back 100 years, this is the kind of active initiatory feature that Libra can bring. Libra is part of the Cardinal cross, and we have Mars in Aries, getting ready to move direct in the middle of November. We have Saturn in Capricorn already moving direct, finishing its phase and its time in Capricorn. But we'll have Venus in Libra. So you'll have those three cardinal rulers together this week. And I think there's a sense of a balancing act that is allowed for with Venus now being strong in its domicile in Libra. The point is that we now have this balanced cardinal cross that's emerging with planets coming into dignity. And with the cross, the squares and oppositions, it's pressurized, it's tense, having to act because of necessity, the way that conditions require one to act, instructive, edifying. The other part of the Libra energy is agreement, concordance, negotiation. There's this idea in romance called the talk. And it's that time when you have a relationship and you have to maybe sit down your beloved and have that talk. What are we? What is this? What are the rules of engagement here? Do you love me? Will you commit to me? All of that, the agreements that can be required in relationships to really give them solidity and structure. Remember, Saturn rules the day triplicity of Libra, and that's part of that structured nature that relationships need, that Libra can also be about. So this week might be good for that, and even next week about giving the talk, especially as Mercury stations direct. What kind of talks do you need to have with the people in your life? This could be workplace relationships. I remember going to HR before and trying to say, here are my needs. I need this in the workplace. So asserting needs, but trying to convert that into agreements that can then be honored as you move forward in a relationship. When there is an anxiety in a relationship, and then you actually use the assertion, sit someone down and have the talk, the other side of that is like settled water. When the new rules of engagement are established and everybody's clear about what page they're on, the proverbial hands have been laid down. And then you can either see if there's the match and then you grow together in a relationship, or maybe it's clear that things are off and people should separate or not, or have a different type of relationship than maybe one was hoping. But there's a settling either way. That's the kind of Librian energy of this great balancing and settling that can emerge. But having Mercury here, the communicator, the messenger, with Venus, and the other thing, this might be cliche, but the golden rule I think is very applicable here, tolerance of people. So no one's perfect. No one is going to meet all of your needs completely. And so there's this compromise that's needed in our relationships, and being tolerant of others, I think, can really serve us as we have to live with others. It's a wonderful framework. How do you want to be treated? And then giving that to other people, doing other people the justice of treating them in that way that you would want to be treated. There's something very powerful about that. And, it goes the other way. If someone's treating you how you wouldn't want to be treated, then you can call them on it and then readjust your commitments accordingly. People are very good at showing us what they're like through their actions, if we only were to pay attention. And that Mercury, I think, can be a part of just getting clear. What is this person really like? And then analyzing. They were mean here, they were, rude here. They are a mean and rude person. And I then get to respond accordingly. That's all the kind of negotiation that can happen with Libra. I want to say here, a friend astrologer Cameron Allen sent me a video of Krishnamurti, the Indian philosopher and thinker from the last century this week. And it's a great video, but at the very beginning of it, Krishnamurti was talking about how we construct images of other people in relationships. So both parties have constructed an image, and really those images are what is interacting. Often it's not the true self or that true flow. We're sort of engaging with our own projection of another person. Venus and Mercury together, I think, can help us cleanse our perception. Just acknowledging it. I perceive you. My perception of you is what I have and what I'm using to base my actions upon and my beliefs upon. Just acknowledging that is a way that it kind of frees up the other person to be something different, to be actually who they really are. If I know that I'm lost in my own images and projections, it means there's something else that's not my image and not my projection that's just as real. So just acknowledging that, I think, is the kind of space that can open up in this Venusian moment, in this Librian moment. So that's what I think Libra is. It's more of like, definitely it's an active side of relationship, but there is this understanding of another person that's required to act properly. There's a clarity that's needed that then the action can emerge out from, an appropriate action, right? So I want to move now. The full moon in Taurus that's coming up, I will have a whole video on it. I'm going to really dig deeply into the lunations. I do that because the lunations are like the drum beats of reality. The full moon, the new moon, that's where I think I like to stop and check the symbolism. You know, some astrologers, like Ptolemy talked about every new moon and full moon, we check in to see how energies are unfolding. I will dig very deeply into that new moon that's coming up. But I just want to say now, it's happening this week. It'll be happening on Saturday, the 31st. Every other astrologer will be talking about the moon being partile conjunct Uranus, and that's a big deal. Uranus, the planet of surprises, upheaval, lightning flashes, and then everything's changed. I'm a 7 traditional planet astrologer, mainly because it's a closed language. It's been with the tradition for thousands of years. My teachers all taught using the 7 traditional planets. And so I just find it to be such a potent symbol set that's, like I said, sealed in its own way, that going outside of it, I do use the outer planets, but not for my bread and butter ongoing analysis, because the rulership scheme is comprised of these 7 planets, and you're in this whole other very rich world of the rulership scheme. And by the way, I will just say that I always in these videos want to point out like sweet spots of the astrology that's coming up. This is my sweet spot candidate for this week, is that the moon moving through those first degrees of Taurus, and really all of the moon's time in Taurus. The moon makes no aspect to Mars, so that retrograde Mars and those challenges of Mars aren't added into this moon. And Saturn is making a very easy trine with the moon. So the moon is not under pressure. So this syzygy is sort of safe from all that, and that's why I really like it. And that's why I think the Uranus conjunction is actually auspicious. There's room for that Uranus to come in and bring some auspicious surprise. So you have this whole pocket. The moon will be waxing for those first 8 some odd degrees, and that's a time when maybe actions can be initiated with the waxing moon. But even so, the rest of the time in Taurus, the moon is exalted, has dignity, and there's a real sense of that lusciousness that can come with the Taurian energy. And this is something I think is very important to talk about this week as Venus dominates and as Venus enters its home of Libra. The relationship between Libra and Taurus is a really fascinating one. Every planet except for the sun and moon have 2 signs they rule. One is the day sex sign and one is the night sex sign. And so each of the planets manifests their energies through this day action and this night action. The thing about Taurus and Libra, they don't make an aspect to each other, so they're not able to communicate according to the Ptolemaic model. They don't see each other. And it's a metaphor for how in relationships, when we really have intimacy with someone, it kind of requires a deep focus on one person. And it forecloses necessarily other relationships. It's built into the way the planets are distributed via rulership in the zodiac. This idea that, depth of relationship forecloses other possibilities. The other thing also, the nocturnal nature of Taurus. So we're not here now talking about reaching new agreements or having the talk or asserting ourselves in relationships. The Taurian energy is a whole different side of things. It's that person you come back to at night. Who are you laying your head down with and waking up with? And that very intimate, nurturing side of the relationship. It's good to enjoy that. Enjoy the people you're with. That's the one kind of message I think of this Taurian moon is the appreciation and the experience of other people. It's the allowing side of relationships. It's allowing myself to be disarmed. It's allowing myself to be vulnerable. And so that I can actually then be perceived by other people. That there's someone else can act upon my vulnerability. There's space for being to then be shared. So sharing being. I love the verb, the to be, in this context, because they say we're not human doings, we're human beings. Look, human beings, we are vibrant. There's a vivacity in our form. I'm not breathing voluntarily. My heart's not beating voluntarily. Those are involuntary. And so I can rest in my being. And when we do that with another person, it's just some of the most profound changes can happen. Some of the most deep connections are found, and that's I think why Taurus is that fixed sign, that sign of depth. When we just be together, eye gazing, nothing's being said, thoughts are passing and flowing, and so that eye gazing is a way to be together. And there's like those questions online. I don't know if you've seen these tests. It's like 27 questions. Go find someone, do these 27 questions together, and it includes a lot of eye gazing, and then you'll be in love. They talk about how you can fall in love with anybody using these techniques. I'm not sure I buy that necessarily, but I think that the eye gazing is really very intimate. Just to bring it back to Taurus, this is the kind of allowance, the allowing energy that I think the Earth Venus is about, as opposed to this more intellectual side, where you're actually assertive with requests in relationship, that the Libra is more about. So that's that dichotomy this week. That's why this week, like I said, is all about relationships. All right, and to finish out the week, Mercury will make a square, its second square this turn, with Saturn and Capricorn. And here I do think we get back to the sort of the formalisms and the legalisms of a relationship. You know, Saturn and Mercury both rule at Libra by triplicity, like I was saying, but often things that have longevity, the kind of longevity that Saturn likes, need to be formalized in some sort of concordance or agreement. You know, some people find this useful when you get your partner and you write down, you know, commitment rules, or you have a relational contract. It doesn't even have to be like a prenuptial agreement. It can just be, you know, a meeting of the minds about what the responsibilities are in the relationship. I was talking about the talk earlier, but these are the kind of things that can come up in a talk. These types of commitments really can support the longevity in a relationship. And if it's in the workplace, you think about, you have an employment contract, that's the relationship you have with an employer, or you have contracts with clients, and those provide the stability and the rules of engagement in relationship. And that's what the Saturn is, and the Mercury is kind of the granularity of that. The Saturn is the longevity and the ceiling. And so with this square, both planets are strong, both planets have dignity. Mercury is slowing down in its power. I think that the square is tense and naturally, so maybe there's some tension that's going to require referring back to a document that already exists, or rules of engagement that already exists, or there will be tension that requires some negotiation here with someone to really reestablish order. And here in Central Europe, that's at 8 in the evening on Sunday here in Central Europe, the day after the full moon, which is on Saturday. The full moon, I think, can be this kind of luxuriating, this allowance, this being with others, and then maybe it's time to bring that luxuriating, allowing energy into something that's a little bit more structured by the time we get to Sunday. The other thing I just want to say here is sometimes how we structure words and how we structure our approach to people can be very important, and it's often the case that a well thought out, you know, first salvo can be quite nice. You know, if they're like going to DM someone for the first time, or tell someone you want to make changes in that dynamic, considering how you'll do that and really planning it out well, that can be what this Saturn Mercury is about also. Saturn likes well-prepared arguments, well thought out, putting in the time before an action's taken. That's what Saturn can be. So look to do that too. Maybe with this aspect on Sunday, you can plan for activities you want to take next week. The election's coming next week, so you know, maybe this is about preparing how, you know, you will engage with the people around you on election day, how you're going to engage with yourself. That can be an intense emotional day, so maybe get some structure decided this Sunday with this Mercury and Libra square Saturn and Capricorn aspect. Should we do a tarot reading? Let's do a tarot reading. Always pull cards, right? That's my motto. Always pull some cards. They always give us symbols, insightful symbols. There's never, even the so-called worst cards require an exploration of what's my reaction. You know, it's just considering difficult symbols, because sometimes the reactions we have, fears, knowing what the fear is often a way to dissipate it. It's like the first step in dissipating that fear. So let's pull up some symbols. Let's see what the tarot has to say about the week ahead, the astrology coming up this week. First card is, okay, 4 of Spades. Interesting. It's always so pertinent, right? And this is the thing about tarot and astrology together. This is the third decan of Libra. Guess what's happening in the third decan of Libra? Mercury's coming there this week. So it really tells me that's one of the more important transits this week. That Wednesday transit, 7 minutes apart, Mercury hits Libra, Venus hits Libra, and then they do this whole Libran dance. So again, I just think thinking about your Mercury is a trickster, right? Be prepared for those kind of two-faced quality of things, especially during that direct station when Mercury can gain great strength in the sky because it's stopped there. This can sometimes be about like reaching a place of stability and agreement. The 2, then you have 3 from 2, and then 4 is that nice table energy. I'm sitting looking at 2 chairs right here. They all have 4 legs. So it can be that supportive side. And I think it has to do with the structure of Saturn, which is the day triplicity ruler of Libra, the support that it can bring, the support that comes from direct and honest communication. That's what this card is about. So look into that this week. Who do you need to be direct with? Who do you need to be honest with? Some of that energy I think can come up this week. This 4 of spades is really speaking to it. Let's get the second card. All right, let's get the second card. I just turned on my camera there. I'd forgotten to do that. We'll get the second card here. See what the second card is. My neighbor over there just started playing Metallica on his guitar, or her. I don't know if they've been doing that every night. So I don't mind it. It's not too late. But if you hear a little bit of actually that's not Metallica, that's the White Stripes. So he's just started to play the White Stripes. Second card. All right, Wheel of Fortune. Let's go to this side. I like the Wheel of Fortune here. This is Jupiter. This is the planet Jupiter. And we didn't talk much about Jupiter, but maybe I'll say what I was thinking about it. Jupiter in Capricorn makes a square to everything that's happened in Libra. And I think that Jupiter, the way I've been thinking about Jupiter and Capricorn this turn is that Jupiter can give what it has to give, even if it's not much. Jupiter can send those rays to Aries, send the rays to Libra. Jupiter's in play here. I've been delineating this as just gratitude for what we have, even if it isn't much. And I think that is well worth considering always. And especially, I think maybe this card is telling us, listen, no matter if during this 2020 your fortunes have risen, or if during 2020 you've had a great challenge, there's always the awe of the path you're on. And there's always flowers on the side of the road that can strike awe if we just pay attention to it. So gratitude this week as we move into this really dignified moment. Jupiter's the only planet not dignified, starting on the 4th. And so maybe it's kind of one of those things, if everything's the same, if all the planets have good energy behind them, which one doesn't? And maybe that's the one to kind of lean into more. So the Jupiter in Capricorn, making a lot with a little, or being grateful for what we have. All right, so enjoy this week. As always, you can book astrology readings with me, tarot readings with me, sjanderson144.com. Just click here to schedule a reading right at the top. I look forward to the honor of getting to work with you and being involved in your life. And yeah, have a wonderful week ahead. This is that week before the election. There's only 4 or 5 weeks left before eclipse season is here. So thank you for being here. Have a great week ahead.